After 3 weeks of uncertainty and intense behind-the-scenes negotiations, Steve Kerr is staying in San Francisco. The Golden State Warriors announced on Saturday that the 60-year-old head coach has agreed to a new 2-year contract, keeping him on the sideline to the 2027 to 2028 season. The deal, first reported by ESPN's Shams Charania, Anthony Slater, and Ramona Shelburne, makes Kerr the highest-paid coach in the NBA, a title he already held last season when he earned $17.5 million. The agreement ends weeks of genuine doubt about the future of one of the most successful coach-franchise partnerships in NBA history. When Golden State's season wrapped up in mid-April with a 111-96 play-in loss to the Phoenix Suns, Kerr sounded like a man preparing to walk away. "I still love coaching, but I get it," he told reporters that night in Phoenix. "These jobs all have an expiration date. There's a run that happens, and when the run ends, sometimes it's time for new blood and new ideas." Those words landed heavily across the league and sent the Warriors fan base into a prolonged state of anxiety. But the outcome was never truly a foregone conclusion in either direction. Kerr, who had announced in training camp last October that he would not seek an extension and would instead ride out the final year of his contract before deciding, spent the following weeks in a series of candid conversations with controlling owner Joe Lacob and general manager Mike Dunleavy Jr. Discussions went deep, touching on offensive philosophy, roster construction, the long-term direction of the franchise in the post-Stephen Curry era, and what kind of commitment the Warriors were prepared to make to remain competitive in the near term. One team source told ESPN that money was never the central issue. It was never going to be about money. We had to make the best basketball decision. That basketball decision ultimately pointed back to Kerr. Despite a difficult 37-45 season ravaged by injuries, the major decision-makers inside the organization, Lacob, Dunleavy, and Curry himself, never truly wanted a divorce. The Warriors lost starting wings Jimmy Butler and Moses Moody to serious knee injuries during the season, with Butler going down in January and Moody requiring surgery in March. Stephen Curry also missed 27 games with a right knee issue of his own. Against that backdrop, finishing as the Western Conference's 10th seed and still pulling off a dramatic play-in win over the Los Angeles Clippers before falling to Phoenix represented something of a moral survival story. Kerr expressed gratitude and genuine enthusiasm upon signing. "I'm grateful for the opportunity to continue coaching this team," he said in a statement released by the franchise. "This organization has meant so much to me for the last 12 years, from ownership to our players, our staff, and our fans. And it's an incredible privilege to be a part of something so special. I'm excited to keep competing with this group." General Manager Mike Dunleavy echoed that sentiment, praising Kerr's leadership qualities beyond the win column. "His impact on our franchise has been enormous, well beyond the championships and incredible on-court success. The character and leadership that he exudes each day helps set the tone for what we hope our franchise represents both now and in the future." Kerr's resume needs little introduction. Since being hired in May 2014, a somewhat controversial move at the time, given that Mark Jackson was popular among players, Kerr has compiled a regular season record of 604-353 and a 104-48 mark in the playoffs. His 8 playoff appearances with Golden State include 4 NBA championships in 2015, 2017, 2018, and 2022, along with 6 finals appearances, 5 of which came in consecutive years from 2015 through 2019. He was named the NBA's Coach of the Year in 2015-16, the same season the Warriors went 73-9 and Stephen Curry became the first unanimous MVP in league history. Both Curry and Draymond Green made clear after the season that they wanted Kerr back. "I hope he's our coach next year," Green said after the Suns eliminated Golden State. "So lucky to have had Steve as my coach for 12 years. With Kerr now secured for 2 years, attention shifts immediately to Curry's contract situation. The 38-year-old superstar is entering the final year of his current deal, and the expectation is that the Warriors will move quickly to align Curry's extension with Kerr's timeline, allowing both cornerstones to potentially ride into retirement together. Draymond Green also has a player option for next season, and an extension that mirrors Kerr and Curry's contracts is a realistic possibility. The Warriors enter the offseason with major roster decisions ahead, significant salary considerations, and a team that must look markedly different by October if it hopes to compete for a playoff spot in the Western Conference. The Kerr signing sets the tone. Golden State is not rebuilding. It is retooling, with its head coach firmly in the driver's seat. Heading into NBA Combined Measurement Day on Monday, the Golden State Warriors already had a solid pool of targets for the 11th pick of the 2026 NBA Draft. Names like LeBaron Philin Jr., Braden Burries, Yaxel Lendeborg, Kareem Lopez, and Ade Mara were all on the radar, with at least 3 of them expected to still be available when Golden State makes its selection. But one player changed the conversation dramatically when his combine measurements were revealed, and now Baylor forward Cameron Carr is forcing his way into the top 10 lottery discussion. Carr had already been projected as a late lottery talent before the combine. What the measurement confirmed was something that rarely shows up on a stat sheet: a wingspan of 7 feet and 0.75 inches on a player who stands just 6 feet 4.5 inches tall. That gap of over 8 inches between height and wingspan is extraordinary. In most draft prospects, wingspans run 3 to 4 inches beyond standing height. Carr's 8.25-inch differential is a kind of anomaly that scouts discuss for weeks. Arm length of that nature can benefit a player on both ends of the floor, and it is most frequently associated with elite on-ball defenders who generate turnovers and alter shots at the rim. The defensive upside is obvious. The production in college, however, was more complicated. Carr averaged just 0.9 steals per game during his junior season at Baylor, which is a modest number for a player whose physical tools scream lockdown defender. The athletic Sam Vecenie addressed this tension in his Monday mock draft, noting that Carr's lack of physicality and a high waist mean his defensive impact is still limited to weak side rotations and contests rather than consistent pressure at the point of attack. That is a genuine concern for NBA evaluators who want to see a player's measurables translate into actual defensive results on the court. Still, Carr brings far more to the table than length alone. In his college season, he averaged 18.9 points, 5.8 rebounds, 2.6 assists, and 1.3 blocks while connecting on 49.4% of his field goal attempts and 37.4% from three-point range. Those shooting numbers are legitimate. His 37.4% mark from deep on what looks like a real stroke, not a low-volume outlier, makes him attractive in a league that places enormous value on wings who can space the floor and create off the catch. He also shows enough handle and passing instinct to function in secondary playmaking roles, though he is not a candidate to run a second unit independently. The key question for Golden State is whether Carr fits the profile the organization needs as it enters a critical stretch of its retooling process. Head coach Steve Kerr has historically leaned on 3-guard lineups, and Carr at 6 feet 4.5 inches would not solve the team size concerns along the perimeter. In fact, slotting Carr into the rotation would likely push Golden State further toward those small ball alignments rather than away from them. Carr would share minutes with Stephen Curry and Brandon Podziemski in some rotations, and with L.J. Cryer and Will Richard and others, keeping the team's average height among the lowest in the league. That is precisely why many Warrior supporters have championed Yaxel Lendeborg as a preferred selection. The Michigan Wolverine stands 6 feet 8.75 inches with a 7 feet 3.25 inches wingspan and was outstanding defensively for the national champion Wolverines this past season. Lendeborg projects to guard bigger wings and even some centers at the NBA level, giving Golden State the kind of positional versatility it has lacked in recent seasons. His ceiling is considered more limited on the offensive end. He does not generate his own shot with any consistency, which is why he is widely described as a high-floor prospect rather than a star. But Carr's shorter frame carries a counter-argument worth considering. Lendeborg, at nearly 6 feet 9 inches, is too large to credibly switch onto elite ball handlers and stay with them laterally through screens. Carr, lower to the ground and more athletic in tight spaces, has a realistic path to developing into an elite on-ball defender against perimeter scorers. The comparison to Moses Moody, a 6 feet 5 inches wing who has shown the ability to guard threes effectively, is instructive. Carr's eventual NBA position will likely be listed as shooting guard, but his wingspan could allow him to defend small forwards just as Moody does. Golden State's front office will give Cameron Carr serious consideration between now and draft night. The 21-year-old Baylor product represents a calculated gamble, a player whose physical profile is elite but whose college production at the defensive end has not yet matched the promise those tools imply. For a franchise try to maximize its remaining window with Stephen Curry, while also thinking beyond it, the risk-reward calculation on Carr is genuinely compelling. If his defensive instincts develop as his athleticism and length suggest they can, the Warriors could be looking at a starting caliber wing with shooting range and the versatility to guard multiple positions. If the development stalls, they will have added another perimeter player in a backcourt already defined by smaller guards. The Warriors must decide by June 23rd which version of Cameron Carr they believe in, the one who showed up in his stats this season, or the one those measurements say he is capable of becoming. The Golden State Warriors have not given up on the idea of landing Giannis Antetokounmpo. Despite a disappointing regular season, a second missed playoff appearance in 3 years, and the looming reality of an aging core, owner Joe Lacob and the franchise's front office are still firmly in pursuit of the Milwaukee Bucks superstar. According to a report published Monday by Clutch Point's Brett Siegel, rival teams around the league fully expect Golden State to include the number 11 pick of the 2026 NBA draft, along with additional future assets, in a formal trade offered to convince Milwaukee to move its franchise player. This is not a new storyline for the Warriors. At the February trade deadline, Golden State reportedly offered the Bucks a package that included 4 unprotected first-round picks. Milwaukee declined. Now, with the offseason approaching and more teams gaining access to comparable trade packages, the bar for what Golden State must offer has only risen. Any deal for a 2-time MVP who remains one of the 5 best players in the league is going to be expensive. For the Warriors, the question is how much of their future they are willing to trade for a chance to compete in the present. There's a procedural wrinkle worth explaining. Under current NBA rules, teams cannot trade their 2033 first-round pick until the new league year begins on July 1st. However, a loophole exists that allows teams to include a 2033 pick during the draft itself on June 23rd, with the selection made official on July 1st. This means the Warriors can legally incorporate both the number 11 pick and a 2033 first-rounder into their trade package on draft night, giving them a pathway to submit their most aggressive possible offer before the free agency period opens. The maximum package Golden State could theoretically construct looks like this. The Warriors would receive Giannis Antetokounmpo, and the Bucks would receive Jimmy Butler, the 2026 number 11 pick, a 2028 first-round pick, a 2030 first-round pick, a 2031 first-round pick swap, a 2032 first-round pick, and a 2033 first-round pick swap. In practice, that would mean Golden State retaining full control of only 2 first-round picks, the 2027 and 2029 selections, through the next 7 years. That is an enormous price for a franchise whose star player, Stephen Curry, turns 38 this offseason. The calculus is brutal. Antetokounmpo alongside Curry would be breathtaking basketball, but the supporting cast assembled around them over that period would be severely limited. There is also the question of whether Jimmy Butler must be part of any deal. Butler, who tore his ACL in January and is expected to miss the beginning of next season, carries reduced trade value because of the injury. His expiring contract makes him an asset for salary matching purposes, but the Bucks may actually prefer it precisely because of its short-term nature. A more complex alternative scenario would involve Golden State keeping Butler and instead packaging Draymond Green, who would need to opt into his player option, along with Kristaps Porzingis in a sign-in trade. Under that structure, Golden State could theoretically keep Butler, Curry, and Antetokounmpo on the same roster, while staying under the second apron threshold of $222 million for the 2026-27 season. But that path is full of obstacles. Porzingis would have to agree to join a rebuilding Milwaukee team, and his every right to simply decline to sign the contract. Any sign-and trade deal for Porzingis would require a minimum of 3 years, likely worth around $90 million, a commitment the Bucks might reject entirely if they preferred simplicity of Butler's expiring salary. Green, for his part, would have to opt into his deal first, at which point he would lose any say over where the trade sends him. What is more likely, according to analysis by Sports Illustrated's Joey Akeley, is that the Warriors draw the line at 4 unprotected first-round picks and 1 swap, an offer slightly less aggressive than the theoretical maximum, but still historically significant draft capital. A package of Butler, the number 11 pick, 3 additional first-round picks, and one swap would represent a franchise-altering commitment. One that bets everything on Antetokounmpo and Curry having enough runway left to justify it. Antetokounmpo is 31, coming off an injury-riddled season, and the questions about his long-term durability are growing. But the potential of pairing him with Curry remains one of the most tantalizing ideas in the league. Lacob and Dunleavy are expected to make their move. The pressure to act is real. Curry is entering the final year of his current contract, and the Warriors are simultaneously trying to negotiate an extension that aligns with Kerr's 2-year deal. Every offseason, without a significant roster upgrade, narrows a competitive window further. The front office has made it clear, through both its actions and its public messaging, that a full rebuild is not on the table. That means going all in on a superstar trade is not just an option. For ownership, it may feel like an obligation. Whether the Bucks ultimately agree to send Antetokounmpo to Golden State depends entirely on what other teams offer. But the Warriors have the assets, the urgency, and the motivation to make the most aggressive bid they can. The league is watching.